I found clips of 7 British politicians speaking French, and I'm going to be reacting to each and every one of them. The popular ones,
beaucoup plus propre maintenant.
the controversial ones,
Je sais que notre...
even the royal ones.
Il est l'occasion de célébrer.
And yes, I know that the royals are not really politicians, but truth is that if we didn't include the royals in this video, we wouldn't have a lot to talk about. This is the UK after all, where we are known worldwide for our foreign language skills.
Je n'ai pas beaucoup pratiqué le français depuis. Aussi, je vous prie d'excuser mon accent très british. Je suis très heureux d'être ici à Paris ce matin, dans ce cadre historique.
Like Jeremy Hunt, the ex-foreign secretary of the UK, I don't think he does too badly. He begins off by excusing himself for not having practiced French since he apparently was a porter in a hotel on the Champs-Élysées in Paris as a young man. But despite not practicing it, I think he does great. I mean, he's the foreign secretary after all, standing up, representing our country, speaking French to the French people, and I think that is cool. Now, truth be told, it is fairly evident that he hasn't really practiced his French that much since school, but that is fine because in this world of Englishness, it is any opportunity you have to get up and speak another language is a great thing. Now, in terms of his French itself, obviously this is completely scripted, but I think in terms of his accent, there are certain things that kind of give away the fact that he perhaps doesn't spend all that much time speaking French. And one of the main things for me is the idea of word stress. And word stress is the idea that within any word we can put a stronger stress on certain syllables. We do this a lot in English, for example. English, the in English is stronger than the glish. We don't say English, we say English. And he does this quite a lot in French. What he does is he borrows the word stress from English and then he applies that to French incorrectly. So for example, he says, je n'ai pas beaucoup pratiqué. Pratiquer means to practice. In French, it needs to be much more leveled out, like pratiquer. But with him, we get pratiquer, and he borrows that from practice in English. Another example would be, je vous prie d'excuser. Excuse, from excuser to excuse, so excuse me, but rather than more leveled out, which it needs to be in French, excusez, we get excuse because that comes from the English excuse. So little things like this with the accent can give you away when you're speaking other languages, but on the whole, I'm super supportive of people going and speaking French like this, even if it's scripted. Now, before we move on to the second one, sometimes when I make these reaction videos, I get some critics in the comments saying, oh, Ollie, you're being so mean, you're criticizing people. That's why I don't like learning languages, because everyone's so mean all the time. But this should be quite the opposite. The purpose of these videos is to inspire. Hopefully you see that with all of the people in this video, the subjects, I'm taking the most positive, charitable possible interpretation. And I really think that people using languages in public life is a great thing. When there are positives, I take great pains to point them out. And then when there are some not so positives, well, that should be a learning opportunity. And in the last video of the last clip in this video today, you're going to see one particularly very, very important language lesson or language characteristic. Not quite sure how to describe it.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Secretary of State will have heard the comments of the French President about access to our fishing grounds. Can he confirm for the fishing industry in Torbay these are hollow threats and we will in future decide our own fishing policy?
Certainement. Le Président de la France. Sorry, I'll translate. The French President is on this occasion wrong.
You're not allowed to speak a foreign language in the parliament. Now, Michael Gove, long-standing politician, he apparently, he took French at school, but he actually didn't used to do very well, and apparently publicly apologized later on in life to his French teacher for misbehaving. So how do we respond to this? There's not much to go on. I think I'll leave it to the Speaker of the House.
Stunning. Absolutely stunning. The articulacy, the accent. What a dramatic performance by the Right Honourable Gentleman. Yeah, Caramona.
Cet anniversaire donne un sens particulier à ma visite d'État, la 4e que j'effectue en France. Pour revenir en arrière, il est l'occasion de célébrer la clairvoyance d'un accord qui allait jeter les bases d'une alliance décisive.
Wonderful. Now, the Queen had a French tutor and governess when she was younger, which is very normal with royals. But apparently, she really hated learning French, especially verbs, which she was made to write out in endless columns. Now, in one story from the book, The Story of the Queen's Childhood, which was written by her nanny, she was apparently so bored with her French one day that she tipped an entire pot of ink over her head. Can you believe it? Who knows whether it's true or not? Now, what can we say about this? Well, the Queen's French is confident It's natural. She has a great accent. By this point, I guess she had, you know, at least 50 years practice giving speeches in French from time to time. It's wonderful. Now, far be it from me to criticize the Queen, but since we're talking about educational opportunities here, then I think there is one thing here which, again, it can be quite difficult for English speakers to get, which is the idea of what's called liaison. Now, liaison is when two words link together. So you have the final consonant of one word linking together to another word which begins with a vowel. So when I'm listening to the Queen speak, I hear a lot of separate words. There was an example where she said this anniversary, cet anniversaire, as two separate words, cet anniversaire. But really what we want to see is those words actually linked up more together. So the t from cet links into the vowel at the beginning of anniversaire. So rather than cet anniversaire, we've got cet anniversaire, like that. And by the way, if you like learning about things like liaison and other things that can help your language learning, whatever language that you are learning, you might like to join my email newsletter. It's completely free, and I send you lots of regular nuggets to help you become a more confident language learner. The link is down there in the description.
J'attache une grande valeur à votre contribution à notre pays. Vous enrichissez tous les secteurs de notre économie, de notre société, de notre culture, de nos vies. Je sais que notre pays serait plus pauvre si vous le quittiez.
Right, Theresa May, we all know Theresa May. Now, she may have studied French at grammar school. It's something that most kids from her generation did. And now clearly here, like in most other examples, she's reading from a script. Although lots of examples we're going to see later are more spontaneous. Now, again, looking for the positive, she is here, the Prime Minister, up representing her country in French, a very important subject as well with Brexit and everything. So great to see that. You know, though, the accent, it is far too English for me. And I know that not everyone has a talent for accents, but I do think that as someone who clearly knows the language, she had an awareness of the language, and I'm fairly sure that she would be able to get by in the language. I just wonder, why can't you just ditch the English accent just a little bit and just try to give a little bit more effort to the French pronunciation? It doesn't take much. It's a little bit like when I made my video on American politicians trying to woo voters by speaking Spanish. Rick Scott, who spoke actually really good French, but in an accent that was just unbearable. I would just like to see people try a little bit more with the accent. And in fairness, virtually everyone in this video does.
D'une période de transition donc allongée pour régler ces problèmes, notamment avec l'Irlande du Nord. Ça vous paraît plausible?
Je pense que c'est inévitable que la période de transition sera éloignée et allongée chaque fois. Aujourd'hui, c'est 2023, le prochain mois, on va dire 2025. Pourquoi? Parce que le gouvernement même de Theresa May n'a pas pu, pendant 2 années, poser et présenter les solutions concrètes et techniques pour sortir de l'Union européenne. Donc c'est inévitable que d'abord, on n'aura pas un accord tout complet, tout fini, avec tous les détails.
Okay, this is very impressive. Now, Nick Clegg is well known as being multilingual. He speaks English, French, Dutch, German, and Spanish, apparently, perhaps more. Well, it's painful to keep going back to these Brexit videos, but his French is fantastic. It is, I think, from everyone we've heard so far, the one who could most easily pass as a native French speaker. Not quite, but not far off either. What I really like about his French is that it's the really accurate articulation of every sound. It's very natural, very confident. He's also got a great command of vocab. And I heard phrases in there like les solutions techniques, which is interesting because technique, to meaning technical, is not a standard adaptation of an adjective from English to French. So that's something you have to know and you can't just guess at. I'm very impressed with Nick.
Le 1er juillet 1867 était, paraît-il, une journée chaude et calme qui augurait fort bien pour une nouvelle génération de Canadiennes. La toile du fond de ces célébrations était la conviction que le Canada pouvait représenter un exemple unique pour le monde entier.
Okay, Prince Charles, again another scripted speech. I mean, his mother obviously spoke French, and like other royals, he learned French from a young age. He apparently got a C in his A-levels in French. Kind of hard to tell here, really. It's a very calm, measured speech. For me, it just kind of lacks French expression. It's a little bit another one of these examples of kind of English vowels and English expression kind of just transferring through. It's just not very animated in the kind of way that we want to see from French. And you heard that transference, for example, in the word unique, meaning unique, obviously, rather than unique, which begins with the U sound. He pronounces it as unique or unique. He got the yeah. It's not unique like in English. It's unique in French. So you got that transference there, which is understandable if you don't speak French that often, maybe, and obviously you don't have time to practice the pronunciation of every single word in speech. So yeah, good job.
J'ai nagé dans le Thames. Le Thames est beaucoup plus propre maintenant qu'avant. Et on est en train de construire un énorme sewer, comment on dit ça, tuyau, voilà, dessous de la fleuve qui va amener toute les bad stuff.
Boris, right? Well, Boris moved to Belgium when he was 9, and he spent 2 years learning French at the European school in Brussels, so he had a good grounding there. He also knows a smattering of other languages as well, Italian, German, Spanish. So what about his French? Well, I'd say his French is good. I mean, he can clearly communicate in the language, and I've seen him speak French in lots of different scenarios, and it's quite impressive. He just lacks detail. It's a little bit like his leadership style, you could say. He's kind of got this great linguistic framework. He really knows the language and he has it in his DNA. But it's like he's so eager to communicate that his vocabulary knowledge doesn't quite keep up with his keenness to communicate. I mean, you saw that here. He was trying to explain all this really complicated stuff about the sewer that they're building. He didn't know the word for sewer or the stuff that you put in the sewer, and that is fair enough. I'm not sure I would either. But despite these gaps, this is actually a quality that is really, really useful in language learning. And you see this here in his willingness to actually communicate with the person that is sat there in front of him. If he doesn't know a word, he'll ask, he'll look at them in the eye, he'll engage with them. He doesn't care how he looks. He doesn't care if he makes a mistake. He wants to communicate. And this is a quality that I've noticed among friends of mine who are very, very successful communicators. It's this ability to kind of ditch the ego and just focus on the person and the communication. Because the more that you're able to do that, the more time you actually end up getting to speak the language, the more confident you get, the more you learn, and this compounds over time and becomes a very, very useful skill in language learning. So that is a great aspect of him. It's also something that he has in common with one particular US politician in this video, a willingness to communicate, a very good style of communication, talking with the person in front of them. It was very impressive, and you'll find out who that is over there.